Welcome to my basic modeling class. In this class, we'll be creating ourselves in 3D. We'll be using Maya LT, which I can show you how to get for free in a previous class that I will have linked. We're gonna start by the basic concept of how a character is created from a box all the way to a full character, and we are going over the basic concepts of getting that character ready for a game engine, and we'll be using it in a later course where we will actually put the character in a game engine eventually. This class is perfect for anybody that has never created anything in 3D before, has never used 3D software before. And also maybe if you have used 3D software, you can learn a couple tricks along the way as well. I look forward to seeing everybody in the class and critiquing your projects. Thank you for joining me. Let me get some image planes in here so that we can have some reference point as to what edits we're going to be making. So I push spacebar. Let me get out to my other views here. This is my front view, this is my top view, this is my side view, got them all set. What I'm going to do is in my front view and side view, I'm going to add image planes. This is going to be an image of myself since I'm modeling myself, and this is very helpful. Usually if you get like a piece of concept art, you can do this. You can throw the concept art right into Maya and just kind of line those verts up right to that concept art. It helps out a lot, especially when you're first learning. Eventually you won't have to do that for every model, but it's a good thing to have. To add an image, you go to View, select Camera, and we're doing our front view first. And it'll show the channel box up here. You push Control A to get to the attribute editor of this camera that we have selected. These are all the attributes on the camera. We're going to scroll down, so we're going to minimize this. We're going to find environment, and we're going to expand that. And next to image plane, you want to hit create. That will create this image plane that has nothing right now. The very first thing you're going to do is just hit on display looking through camera. So this is the camera that we have currently selected. It will just to show this image plane only in this view, so you don't have it clouding up all your other views. And we're going to select image next. So there's me, there's my image plane. It's not in the right spot. The feet of our character needs to be at the origin of the scene. So we're going to scoop me up here. And since my camera that I took this picture with wasn't an orthographic camera, you can see the top of my feet, which is not really what you would see, so just kind of do the best you can to line this up. Your camera's going to do the same. And we got to move this over so that I'm as symmetrical as I possibly can be. It's not going to be perfect. That's okay. Put the alpha of this down so we can see while we're modeling a little better to 0.5. Alright, so now I'm a little bit alpha'd out, makes it easier to model. I'm going to put the wireframe on so you can see the wireframe, and I'm going to put X-ray on so you can see through the model as you're modeling it. And this will help it so we can see the image behind the model. We can also see through the model, both sides of our model. Alright, so I got my side view in here, and what I'm going to do is move that to the origin. So it looks like my picture is oriented the wrong way. I'm facing backwards. My positive Z is this way. And it's not that hard to flip this guy. All you do is to pick a spot to look at, go to your scale tool, which is pushing R, and then start scaling in the negative X. As long as you have it pretty much lined up to what it was, that's perfectly fine. So now I just scaled it. I have to move them back over a little bit. So these are both lined up. Let's very quickly just turn them back on in all views just so I can see if they're lined up or not. That side view is tricky. Alright, now they're basically lined up. Now they're both hidden again. To make sure that these can't be selected while I'm working, I'm going to shift select both of them and add them to a layer. This adds whatever you have selected, it will add it to a layer. I got my layer here. I'm going to double click into it, name it image layer, save. I'm going to lock this layer. So to lock a layer, you push R, and that makes it so you can't even select it. If you need to select it again, you just hit this until it's clear again. You can even hide them if I want using the visibility option. But for now I'm going to leave R. So we're almost ready here. Right at the hips is the best spot to start. And I'm going to make sure in the perspective view I'm facing the correct way. This little thing in the corner here will show you how you're oriented in world space. So Z is forward. VZ should be facing towards you if you're staring at the computer screen. And that's how we're doing it. And let's start modeling. In this lesson, we're going to be creating a character from scratch with the mindset that it is going to go into a game engine in a later lesson. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a box first. This method is called box modeling, and from that box we're going to be creating our character. You go to Create, Polygon Primitives, and you select Cube. And you can look at the options if you've opened Maya before and messed with stuff. Everything here looks fine. So I push Apply, and I got my cube. So I'm going to move this guy over a little bit so that he's right against this center axis here. This is the origin of my scene, this dark line. And what I'm going to do first is delete this interface here. We are never going to need that for the inside of the character. And I want to make sure my vertices line up exactly over this line. So a shortcut to do that is we select all these verts here. We hold X, and you move the X. X is to snap to grid lines, and we move it on the X axis, and that makes sure that it will snap right there to the origin perfectly. And so we go back to object mode. To get to these different modes that I'm doing now, you right click on an object, and we go to vertex mode to select verts. Right click, go to edge mode to select edges. Right click, face mode to select whole faces. And object mode is just your normal selecting objects. In order to mirror it, we're going to go to edit, duplicate special, and make sure you click this little box here. This is the options. And this pop-up will come up. And what we're going to do is we want to make sure reset this so it's exactly what you have. So geometry type, we want it to be an instance. Make sure it's an instance. An instance is an exact copy of this object. Every time you make an edit to this guy, it'll automatically it'll show you on our box that we are scaling over. And to mirror it, we're going to make sure that it's duplicated in the negative x-axis, so -1 scale. So this geometry is going to flip from whatever pivot. So let's move the pivot very quickly. To move the pivot, you hit Insert on your keyboard, and we're going to use the same method we did to snap the verts. We're going to hold down X and move this over, and it just snapped to the origin there, and that's all we need to do. So we just snapped it there. Now when I hit Apply here, with this box selected, it's going to make a copy of it and mirror it over in the x-axis. So Apply. Alright, so we have our box here. So any edits I make to this box are going to happen on both sides at once. So one thing I must note, you can't move this guy. If you can move it, you gotta move both of them if you're gonna move them. The translate does not mirror over, only the editing of the object itself. Luckily, you will not have to move this guy around too much. So I select both of these, move them up to roughly where my character's hips are going to be. Let me get some image planes in here so that we can have some reference point as to what edits we can do. main method of modeling here will be extruding. Just start out. So what we're going to do is we're just going to edit these verts. Go to vertex mode, shift select, and let's go into our front view only, just so we don't get bogged down with everything. So when you're in this view, don't just click to select. Make sure you're dragging so that you select the vert that's directly behind this one. Since we're in orthographic view, we can't see all the verts. If you just click, you'll see. See, now you can see a dark edge. That means there's a polygon here. We don't want that. We want to see this light edge until we're ready to start, making an actual 3D object. So let me move this vert down to where the base of the hip should be, and try to make sure that this center line stays in the center. It's not the biggest deal in the world if it doesn't stay in the center. We can change it and move it later. So we're going to do the hips. The hips have sort of an angle here. The hip line, they call it. So we're going to put that hip line in. Here. And this geometry doesn't have to be perfect. This is our first class, our first foray into everything, so I don't expect any perfection here whatsoever. It's just getting used to the tools, getting used to moving around so it kind of looks like a pair of superhero underwear right now. That's how it should look for your start. So we've got our start. Now we need to start adding geometry. To do that, we'll go into face mode. You select your first face up here at the top. So it'll be right here. And you can start extruding. And to do that, you hold down Shift, right click, and you say extrude face. Alright, so now we have a face that's extruded. We start moving it up. And what we're going to do is we're just going to start moving these things around. So when I do that, I'm going to move this. You'll notice the center line starts getting all wacky. That's totally fine. We're going to fix this later at the end. So just worry about this outer edge. To do another extrude without having to redo the tool, you just push the G key. It just reruns the last tool that you did. And you'll be using that quite a bit. So I push G just once. I'm going to start going faster here. Just make sure you're paying attention and you're not pushing G a whole ton. Creating those extra faces. It happens, but just try to be as careful as possible. And it looks like this is getting too far over, so let's do a scale. We're scaling this in. Okay, so I've got my main torso here. So let's fix this a little bit while we're working here. Let's select our side that we just made. Let's delete the other one. Let's go to vertex mode. Again, we're going to do the snap to origin, so hold down X. You're going to try to snap to origin, but it's not going to work. You're like, oh man, these are all stuck at the positions that they're at. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to scale, pushing R. And you're just going to keep scaling in until it looks like until they stop moving. So now we've got a straight line. Now we can snap to origin. My options should already be set for duplicate special. I shouldn't have to do them again. I'm just going to do duplicate special, and it's all ready again. And sometimes you might have to, set this up multiple times, and that's okay. Alright, so I got my main body. Now I'm going to make my limbs. Select this bottom face here, right click, extrude face, and you're going to try to move this guy, and you're like, whoa, this is getting really weird. So at this point, it's okay to not use the manipulator that creates directly after you create an extrude face. Instead of doing extrude face and using this tool right away, just push the normal tool, push W to move it, so now you can move it straight down without any problems. I'm going to use scale to kind of scale this to the size that I need. And there's a lot of different ways you can do this. A lot of different ways. I'm going to make sure these are flat because I don't want it to have crooked bends. So make sure you flatten these out and then you start extruding down. Push G. And you don't have to follow this geometry perfectly. At this knee, I'm going to do this preemptively. I'm going to add 3 edge loops right here for the knee so it can bend well. So I got one here. The middle of the kneecap is about here. G. The end of the kneecap is about here. So you have these three edges here that help with when the knee bends. And it also helps for the shape of the knee as well. So I'm going to create this model as if I don't have these shorts on right now. I'm just going to do it as if I have regular knee. So I can show you how to do just a normal knee. So I'm just kind of making some adjustments now that I've decided not to do the shorts, just to make it look more how it's supposed to. Alright. Okay. Down the calf. Okay, just a little bit of adjustments there. Let's go back here. I went into face mode. If you go back into face mode, it will resume back at the last face you had selected, so that's why I don't have to keep selecting that bottom face. But if you do have to select the bottom face again, it's pretty easy. You just go back to this view and go right back at it. Or you can stay in this view with all of them. So I'm going to put one edge here at the top of the ankle, one edge in the middle of the ankle, and then another edge here, the base of the foot. It's going to be a little tricky to judge this foot just because it's not really in space how it's supposed to be. So just do the best you can, really. I'm going to put just one more here. I'll do that here. Alright, so that's my first leg all modeled out, and you can see it's not perfectly mirrored over because this picture isn't perfect, but it's pretty close. Before I go into the arm, I actually want to go to the side view, because once I go to the side view, the arm is kind of in the way. So I want to go to the side view before I get too far. Don't want to get too ahead of myself. Now obviously the side view is not right whatsoever, so I'm going to select both of these guys and just scale them out. To a thickness that kind of makes sense. I think that generally makes sense. And now let's just kind of move these verts around as we need them. And we might need to add more later. For now, I'm not going to add any extra. Just kind of work with what we got here without trying to muddy this up too much. So to add an edge in for this neck here, we go to object mode, we select our geometry, shift, right click, and we're going to do insert edge loop tool. This makes sure that it inserts an edge of polygons all the way around the neck, which is very important. And I'm just going to put it about here or so. This will help with the back of the neck as well. So we're going to see, I'm making sure I'm drag selecting these so that vertices behind my selection are also getting moved. It's not just on one side of the model that things are getting moved. So now you can see the chin is starting to form out since I added a couple polys there. Go, and then we're going to do that here. And your side view and front view thickness might not totally match up. That's okay. Just try to get it the best you can. We'll go into our main view and make this a little bit more right. This is just trying to define our main shape. Alright. And as we're going to pretend these feet are from the side view. This is more like what I would want. And now let's do the arm. Alright, so we got our face selected. And we haven't done our tool yet, so push G again because we haven't done anything else yet. For this start of this one, we're going to do this again where we just push manipulator on and we scale to flatten it. And then after that, we can kind of start angling it. So we want to angle this main edge. G. So we're going to rotate this one. I'm going to make sure we're rotating along the edge of where the arm is. I'm trying to follow my picture as closely as possible. So now we can start moving down the arm a little bit better now that we're oriented the correct way. And the elbow is coming up right here. And we want to do the 3 edge loops again. One in the middle, one here. And we'll adjust these a little later after we get into the other views and see what's really, because I don't even know exactly where my elbow is right here. And then we're going to do the same with the wrist. You'll notice a pattern of me making always 3 edges. Let's try to make this guy more. Add some more edges in. Let's try to make this guy more. Add some more edges in here. So to add edge loop here, we're going to right click, or shift right click, and then insert edge loop. And I want to insert an edge loop pretty much on every one of these big flat edges. I'll start here at the front, so this adds an edge loop all the way down the body, which is great. And this, then we want here, and this is going to add an edge loop pretty much exactly how we want it, all the way down the body. And I'm going to show you a little trick for kind of smoothing this all out. And then we want one here so we can do the same thing to the arm. It's nice to do this now before you've already done like all kinds of edits and trying to mess with your geometry too much, just so it's easy. You just can insert the edge loop all the way down. So now let's round this guy out. Let's first go into edge mode, right click, edge mode, and then that brings you to edge mode. You can select any edge you want. To select an edge loop, you double click on an edge. So I just selected this whole loop here, and I'm going to bring him in. Here. I'm going to work strictly in the 3/4 view this time because I want to see how it's rounding out. There, got him nice and rounded. Yeah, just kind of eyeball it. Got this guy here. Let's move this inner corner here. Okay. And let's make sure we put that back. Snap with X. Go. And the reason why we're moving the corners here instead of this part is that instead of pushing this part out, our character will get too fat, I believe, if we try to push this middle part out. So this is one of the ones where I could probably just move this edge too as well. And then a deselect, I am control and then deselecting. So the arm itself just needs to get brought in a little bit here. And sometimes you can just select, so it looks like the whole arm here is just a little thick. So I'm going to scale it. Just select it all and scale it in a little bit. And let's just fix this back real quick. You're going to know some things like this happen where things get off as you're messing around, and you'll just have to like push and pull and put them all back to how they need to be. No big deal. Happens all the time. And this is kind of the reason why I recommend doing the A pose, because if you do this in the T pose, where this arm is just straight out, this shoulder geometry looks a little bit different. We want to make sure we're doing things right, just so it deforms correctly. You don't get this like really soft looking shoulder. You get a nice arc to your shoulder. It's bending, so let's do extrude face here. If you just start doing it, it's going to kind of splay out like this, so you don't want to use the tool right away. You just want to push W so that you can just move everything forward like that. I'm going to take the tab, move it down. Next one. Down. We want to have some thickness here. So gonna bulge out just a little bit. Just a little bit. Cool. Let me add an extra edge loop in here for this. Let me fill this out just a little bit so I can kind of do this right. Too round on the face. Your face isn't quite a ball, so that wouldn't be right. It's more like a rounded square, really. Like you still have your four sides of your face. They're just kind of rounded a little bit. All right, now the top of the head's looking real weird, but sometimes it's just little movement can go a long way in fixing everything. And right now I have some of my extra edges here. So let's first get rid of this one and this one. Alright, collapse edges. Collapse edge. Let's do this one too, collapse edge. So that works for us. I like to leave this one here, so I have a little bit of roundedness. And you know, I'm not gonna model my face out too much either, just because this is our first course, a very introductory course. And I don't want to go too crazy on that. I'll show you how to get things started, really. Let's bring this neck part out again. This neck isn't supposed to be so pinched in like that. That's way too pinched. One more edge loop here for when the head is moving. When the head is turning, it's gonna need another one there, it looks like. So that should do us some good. And so let's do the hands. For the hands here, I'll extrude. So I'm gonna go out to the knuckles. And I'm probably just going to do some mitten hands, really. Arm length might be a little off here. So for proportion-wise, your elbows should kind of touch your hips. My proportions are off. So my elbow should be going down like here. It's not. Let me stretch that out just a little bit. Okay, so that's a little better there. Just lands where the hip is, and then the fingers should kind of go midway on your thigh. Because of how I was standing with my picture, it kind of shortened my legs, so that kind of messed things up for me a little bit. Let's lengthen my thigh so that my other part of my body can fall correctly there. Not a big deal. These are the kind of adjustments you expect to make. Now, I think we need some extra geometry here for the base of the thigh. That whole area, it just needs a little bit more there. Just not a whole lot, just a little bit more. I take this and I generally go. It works a little bit better now. I could be even taller, it looks like, because the thigh needs to be much bigger than the calf. Okay. I don't want to go too crazy on it. I think that looks like a pretty good proportion. Me now. My camera did quite a job on the perspective of this. So yeah, that looks a little bit better now, a little bit more normal. So it's okay to stray from your image a little bit if it doesn't feel right, it feels a little bit off. Just get character or concept image that does feel right. So let me just do the fingers in the 3/4 view here. And your thumb, from a side view, points downwards a little bit. Comes out. It doesn't come out flat, so I'll show you what I mean when I say that. When it comes out, it kind of goes down. Okay, so right now I don't want to rotate this on the world axis. I want to rotate this guy on a specific axis. So I'll go into my tool settings. You can do it here, or you can Control Shift, right click, go to rotate options at the bottom here, or it'll have whatever options you have. You will have move options or scale options as well. It'll open up this tool settings here, so we can change it from world to component, and whatever component I have selected, it will rotate in those axes of that component. So that's what I'm going to do here. And I'm going to do the same for scale. I'm going to go to component. There we go. Extrude again. And one thing with the thumb, you want to make sure that when the thumb is kind of facing towards the palm a little bit, so my thumb needs to face it a little. It's a little bit too much face towards. Just kind of look at your own thumb and make your best judgment. We have the main knuckle, the middle knuckle, and then we're going to have the end knuckle. And I'm going to make sure these are all the right size after I kind of create this geometry here. So this is obviously way too long. I'm going to fix that up. And we put this bend in here so that you have a nice knuckle. If you just do everything straight, when you bend it, it's going to look real soft. It's not going to look quite right. That's the difference between a AAA character and a not AAA character. Now if you're doing a normal mitten, you're probably not going to have to do all these edges that I did, but I just wanted to kind of show you how a finger is normally done. As far as edge loops are concerned, you just have the 3 edge loops at every finger. And I'm just kind of trying to shape it so it doesn't look weird now. Let's turn back on soft select. So to select an edge ring, it looks like I have an extra edge ring here. You select one edge and then you shift double select the second edge and it selects the ring of edges here. It looks like I have an extra edge that I created in here. Shift right click, merge collapse. I'm just gonna say collapse edge. So I got that out of there, and now I have a nice mitten hand. So it looks like I made I think the thumb might be a little bit too small. Let's make this guy just a little bit bigger here on that main part. Let's drop him further. I mean, It looks weird just because he doesn't have a palm right now. Okay, so it looks like that's kind of closer to what we need for the thumb. Okay, and I'm going to insert an edge here, edge loop here. First I'm just going to take out the palm right here, just so we have more of a palm. But I'm not going to do a whole lot more with that. What we're going to do is delete here. So we're going to delete these edges here. All of these. So I'm going to delete this edge here. So select the edge you want to delete. And you go to Shift, right click, delete edge. And if you do it this way, it deletes the edge, but it also makes sure it deletes any vertices that might show up. Just to show you, let's do the multi-cut tool. Alright, so I've got my multi-cut. I just cut some edges. I'm like, no, I don't want these. So I cut them and I delete them. But, as you might be able to see, these old verts are still here. No worries, you can just delete them, like select the verts and delete them. But if you want them to delete automatically, you use the delete edge tool when you have an edge selected. So delete edge comes up with an edge selected. That's it. So now that I got my character modeled out pretty much how I want it, I'm going to make it more real. I'm going to delete the instance side that I had, and I'm going to Control D, that's duplicate this current side. So I duplicated it. You can't really see it until you do a -1 scale. So we're going to scale that, but this time we're going to combine these two meshes. So to combine, you Shift, right click, and the combine tool should show up here at the bottom. And these two are combined, but they're still not fully combined. There's a hole in it. So we want to merge these meshes together fully. We want to merge these vertices together. So we're going to select these. Don't worry if you select extra ones in here. They're not going to get merged. Just make sure you have all the verts selected that are in the very center. And you right click, and we're going to go to Merge Vertices. And we can just say Merge Vertices. Let's do the options on that. And make sure our tolerance, our threshold's set low enough so it doesn't merge a bunch of different stuff. So ours is set to 0.01, that should be fine. Apply. Doesn't look like anything changed, but now you'll notice when you move a vert around, there's no hole opening up in the middle of the character. So that's how we got here. And I think now is a good time to look at our history. These are all the tweaks we've done since we started this model. Let's clear this out because this can start bogging down the machine and just making everything run really slow and causing problems. Edit and delete by type and history. And now we have some clean history, and I can already feel it. My machine my viewport just feels like it's moving a lot smoother now. So let's do one last step on this guy. In the process of creating this character, you might have created some geometry that's a little messed up, and in Maya it works fine, but in the game engine it will not. So we go to Mesh, Clean Up, and go to Options. And let's look at our options here. We have Clean Up Matching Polygons. These ones aren't as important to fix. It's these ones that are very important to fix. We don't want lamina faces, which are faces sharing all edges. That's just a face that's infinitely flat and it's just nothing. Sometimes that can happen. And we don't want non-manifold geometry. And we don't want edges with 0 length. We don't want faces with 0 geometry area. So all these here, we're going to check them all on except for the faces with 0 map area because we haven't really mapped anything yet, so it'll just kind of mess up your geometry. So we hit apply, and it delete by time history. So I deleted the history one more time. It does look like I have some weird normals here. We're not really going to worry about the normals for this lesson. When we bring our object in, we're probably just going to have Unreal recalculate our normals anyway. So that's pretty much it. And now now that we have our guy all merged and ready together, I kind of want to make some adjustments to this now that I'm looking at it. I kind of want to make the hands bigger. So we're going to bring our soft select back out. Let's turn on soft select and let's turn on symmetry settings. Symmetry object X. So now when I select one side of the object, one side of our model, the other side will get selected and moved. Now that we're not using our instanced geometry. So I want to make these hands bigger. They don't feel big enough to me. They just feel kind of bleh. Okay, that feels a little better. And the head doesn't feel good enough to me either. So we're going to scale up the head. So it's okay to not have it look exactly like you, just kind of take your own liberties into making the character. You know, in games, often you want to see, often they scale up the hands and face just so you can see things a little bit better, what's going on. So I'm just kind of exaggerating some stuff a little bit more than what it is in real life, just so that it looks a little cooler. Change this to world. Oh, that's not gonna work, huh? Let me turn off my symmetry. Select. Make sure my guy's feet are on the ground since I moved him up a little bit. And I'm going to put a bend in the arms here. It's good to have that bend. Let me turn off the soft select a little bit, or turn it down. You always want a little bend in there. Just always works better. I want to make my feet smaller again. I don't like them all scaled up like that. It looks kind of weird. As you can see here, I've skipped a little bit ahead. I just wanted to kind of bring something up that I ran into that I thought would be important. So in our original model, we kept it very low poly. This is extremely low. This one is 3,000 tries. That is, every one of these quads here, these boxes, is actually 2 triangles. So we have 3,000. That's pretty low. This is something you'd have on like a mobile project, you know, a game on your phone, maybe tablet. For a console game, this is just too low. They wouldn't go for this low on a console game. So what you're going to do at this point, because you've kept it so low, you're like, oh man, now I have to add in a bunch of edges and smooth it all out. No, you don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is use a tool that will smooth out your mesh. That is right here under Mesh, Smooth, with your mesh selected, and you go into Options. You need to do this step. Leave it exponentially. Divisions 1, we don't want to do a bunch of different divisions. This, by default, will be on open subdiv. We want to change it to Maya because then we have more control over the shape that it creates. So we're going to push apply. And right here you can see it smoothed out my mesh. Pretty smooth, but the problem with this, by default, it kind of like rounds out everything almost a little bit too much. First thing I'm going to do is tell it to not smooth out my UVs, because what this did was it kind of messed up my collar here. I'm going to tell it to push 0 for off on smooth UVs, so now it left my UVs alone. It didn't mess with them at all. Now for continuity, this is what we're going to do to help it maintain our character's shape just a little bit. So I'm going to click on the attribute, and then I'm going to middle mouse in the viewport here, back and forth. And if I leave it at continuity 0, you'll notice it's just the same exact shape as my original model, just with more polygons, which is a complete waste. We don't want that. So we're going to start just edging a little bit, just round out a little bit, and what you'll end up doing is probably somewhere around, let me type it in, you'll end up with somewhere around 0.5 for your continuity. It just depends on your model. And what that did was it still smoothed this out a little bit, you know, kept us fall around corners, but it didn't completely mess up our hair shape here. You can see that the angle is still there, which is nice. This is why I like to do this at the end, because you can keep this on here and just, you can change how many ever divisions you want on this model. I could just super smooth it out. But, you know, that's kind of a waste. We're not going to super smooth that. But, you know, it's just an example. I could take off the divisions if I want. This is my original model right here. So, you know, the original model was 3K, and now this guy is 13K. So that's like a pretty modest size for this character. Doesn't have a lot of detail. Just a normal dude, just me. And it didn't require me to have like a whole, I didn't model out every little detail. I didn't model out all the shoelaces, and I didn't model out like the buckle, and so I just like kept it in the texture, and it kind of works out fine. In another step later, I will do a normal map on this guy. I'll show you how to use that. For little details like this, I like to use normal maps because it makes it look like it's modeled. It makes the light kind of shine on the laces as if they're modeled, but you don't have the polygons. That's essentially how you smooth out your model. For a higher poly game character, we're looking upwards of max 100k polys. Most games kind of fall in the 50 to 70k poly area for your high-res characters, you know, because they want to be able to do a lot of other things on screen. They want to be able to do effects, some lighting effects, some the shadows, everything. They want to have everything working nicely, so they don't want to just throw a bunch of polygons onto the character. Something like Overwatch actually has around 40k polys for their characters, so go look at their characters, and they look pretty good. I'm a champion of going as low as possible. 40k, I honestly don't think you need much more than 40k polys. You can pull off a lot of stuff with those. If you start getting into hyper realism, then you need more than 40, but anything stylized doesn't really need more. We're going to keep ours very low here. This is probably only like 5k. We haven't even gone past, you know, into the detail model stuff here, but I want to save that for another lesson for later. So we got our character modeled, all cleaned up and ready to go. That pretty much concludes this lesson today. From here, we're going to go into UVs and how those make a texture wrap around your model. Texture is just a 2D image that colors your model. You can do a lot of different things with those, not just coloring, but for lighting and all kinds of different things. So I'll go over that as well. I'll see you in the next class. Thank you for joining me.